My name is John Pitman Weber, and I'm from Chicago. I'm a visual artist, I'm a painter and printmaker, and I've been involved in public art for about 40 years. Mostly in Chicago, but I've done work in a number of other cities, including Paris, where I hope to work next summer, actually. But I'll be happy to come back to Spain anytime. I am working on a really large, complex project that involves two gable end buildings, each about 4 stories high, and I'm principally responsible for leading the mosaic work that will cover essentially up to the first floor. So that's about 400 square meters. Well, because there's a fabulous program here in Vitoria. It's called La Ciudad Pintada, the painted city. And the mural that you see behind me is the first mural that La Ciudad Pintada did, and that I think is just absolutely a classic. And they've been doing murals at the pace of about 2 a year since then, and this year 3. And they're in the process of creating a kind of a sort of self-guided mural itinerary through the old city, the Casco Viejo of Vitoria. And after that, I guess they'll have to move out into the rest of the city. But it's an extraordinary program. It's absolutely just top-notch, and I'm very happy to be working with them. Well, first of all, there's a very important aspect of process, that the neighbors are consulted. And there's people from the neighborhood involved. So there's about 50 volunteers who've each committed to working a minimum of 12 hours a week. Some of them will probably work 20, 30 hours or more. And some of them will barely get their 12 hours in, but maybe they're working 2 jobs. And then there's some sort of youth employees who are supported by the Caja Vital Bank here. So there's this whole aspect of sort of communication with the neighborhood and involvement of the neighborhood. And that's a very basic value that's in all of these. All of these murals are extremely site-specific. You couldn't move this mural someplace else. It wouldn't have the same meaning. This plaza here was actually the site of a cloth trade fair, where merchants from all over Spain came and met with merchants from France and traded cloth in medieval times and on into early modern times. So the theme has to do with where you are. And so we've been involved in pretty detailed and extensive study of the site, from both its history, where it is now in terms of who's living there now, which is quite a mixed population, but also the visual and spatial situations. We're on a fairly steep slope at the site where we're working this summer, and so there's a number of very special challenges visually and spatially, as well as thematically. So why here? Because there's this program that's doing this great work here, and that is a type of work that fits very well with the kind of public art that really I've dedicated my whole career to. Well, I think it says something about the American values that that the embassy and the State Department have chosen to help support through supporting me, basically coming here, a program of this character that involves a kind of not just doing something that's beautiful and relatively long-lasting, and that's involved in the renovation of this wonderful old city here, but that is also involved in changing people's relationships to each other, helping to build new relationships. We've often said, back in my work in the States, that community art, community public art, is about building community. And certainly they're doing that here. And one of the reasons why I jumped at the chance to come here was that I've been very interested in the history of Spain, not so much the expulsion of the Moors and the Jews, but the 7 centuries of living together that happened before that disaster. And for me, all of my work has been about living together. You know, how do people live together well with all their differences? And the United States, you know, there's a lot of aspects of what we've exported to the world at different times that are maybe not so beautiful. But this one really goes to the heart of the very best that the U.S. history has to offer as an example of a country built on and with diversity, and built on citizen involvement, and that there's a possibility of this type of grassroots activity having a very real effect on the quality of life that we have. And I think that that's something that can be found in happening on many different levels. Sometimes it's a big struggle, but on many different levels, in many parts of the U.S., whether in small towns and big cities. And it's something that the idea of voluntarism, for instance, has not been tremendously part of the European tradition, but by gosh, they've made it work here. And of course, the 2 sisters who've created this program are themselves sort of multicultural, and they're trilingual. They have a German father and a Basque mother who teaches Spanish medieval literature, and they themselves are artists, and who grew up partly in the United States and have lived much of their adult lives here. So I mean, they've lived that kind of internationalism and diversity and citizen involvement. They've both been involved in those kind of programs for many years before they came here, and they've made it happen here. They've made it. They've turned it into a sort of Vitoria tradition, and one that I think will be contagious, perhaps. Well, I wouldn't be here without the support. I would have liked to come even without any support, but it's really the support that made it possible for me to be here. So for me, that's that's all the significance in the world. That the ambassador came here really says something about both the ambassador's interest in culture and in sort of grassroots citizen involvement in culture and involvement in making the city, you know, into making it and keeping it, you know, a really livable, lively place. But there's a personal interest, I think, there, but it also says something about the importance that the U.S. government has chosen to give its program of grants to kind of grassroots cultural organizations, which I think is just fabulous. What a great idea. And keep on doing it.